All right, this is going to be a painful video. I'm not going to lie to you. I may or may not have said to buy low on a couple of these running backs a few weeks back. So we're going to have to go through. We're going to have to give an update on where we stand now, where we should be panicking. But before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, if you want to go tell me, Mason, you're so dumb. How dare you tell me to buy low on DeAndre Swift? You can do that in the comment section. And in that comment section, you'll also find a link to Underdog Fantasy. When you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And if you signed up to Underdog this weekend or Monday morning, you should have access to this Alvin Kamara free bet line. Could not be more proud that I was able to get this to you. So, of course, make sure you go deposit $10 on Underdog. Immediately have $20 in your account. And then go take the more than Alvin Kamara on Have That Rushing Yard. Only available for people who use promo code FLOCK. Super proud that I was able to get y'all that. But that should be it. Let's go over to Indianapolis. And let's look at Sam the man, Sam Ehlinger, letting us down here where I think we need to be panicking on every single player that's involved. Obviously, you weren't starting Sam Ehlinger outside of like a 16-team Superflex format. Obviously, we weren't starting any tight ends here. Really, the names you're looking at, Jonathan Taylor, as well as Michael Pittman Jr. And what we were saying once Jonathan Taylor was ruled out this week is that we needed the Indianapolis Colts to go out there and win. We needed the Colts to beat the New England Patriots. We needed the Colts to be able to put up a fight because we had a lot of people in the comment section telling us, Mason, Jonathan Taylor doesn't have the upside at the end of the year like you think he does. Mason, they're going to shut down Jonathan Taylor. And I didn't believe that was going to be possible outside of a complete and utter collapse from this Colts offense because the Colts were sitting at 3-4-1. They win, then they're 4-4-1. They're one game back from Tennessee on the division. Getting blown out. Falling to 3-5-1, looking more and more likely that they have no reason to rush Jonathan Taylor back in. Looking more and more likely like they have no reason to put Matt Ryan back in here to possibly try to save the day. What are they playing for this season? Just play for next year. Play for CJ Stroud. Play for Bryce Young. And if we are looking at Sam Ehlinger with how bad it was, of course, I want to sit here and I want to make excuses. I want to say, Hokum Lawrence, it was the offensive line. In reality, it was everything. 103 passing yards, 1 interception, 0 touchdowns. Deion Jackson was getting every single snap out of this backfield, and he wasn't doing anything with it even before the injury. Michael Pittman Jr. comes out, dominates with targets, leads the team with 6. Still only has 3 receptions and 22 receiving yards. Now, of course, it was a very tough matchup against the New England Patriots. But I think, honestly, this loss makes it less likely that they rush back Jonathan Taylor. And I think the complete dysfunctional nature of the Indianapolis Colts offense here makes it where we probably shouldn't be that excited to start Michael Pittman Jr. anytime soon. But now going over to Courtland Sutton, super brief. I've seen people dropping Courtland Sutton. Okay, 100%, I've said all offseason, Courtland Sutton was the worst pick in fantasy football drafts. We were screaming to sell him high earlier in the year while other people were screaming at us in the comment section, take your L, take your L. Okay, with Courtland Sutton, you should be worried. You should panic. The man outside of the 2 games where Jerry Jeudy was injured has had 72, 52, 74, 14, 23, and 13 receiving yards. The man simply has not been startable outside of those 2 weeks. Now, does that mean we can go through and just drop Courtland Sutton like I've seen people? No. I mean, I feel like, if anything, I need to say, pump the brakes. While, yes, Sutton's not the guy you thought he was when you drafted him. 100%, he's never going to be that guy. Courtland Sutton, if this Denver Broncos offense can somehow just get slightly better, I'm not saying that all of a sudden Russell Wilson turns into the guy that people thought he was. But if they can just get slightly better and Courtland Sutton can be a top 36 wide receiver in fantasy, that's a guy that's worth that roster spot. So please hold on to Sutton. If you can sell him for something, do it. But I'm seeing people cut him. It's not something you should do. Now going over to our next receiver, Devonta Smith. Smith, very brief. I mean, this was a wide receiver. You shouldn't have really started against the Houston Texans because What do you need with Devonta Smith? You need him playing in a contest where they are actually going to have to throw the ball in the second half. You need him playing in a competitive game. If it's not a competitive game, if they're able to shut down this passing offense by the time we get to the third quarter, it's not going to be a great spot for Smith. I mean, if we go through and if we look at the past 2 weeks, 22 receiving yards, 23 receiving yards, clearly hasn't been startable. However, I think Smith is actually the perfect comparison to another wide receiver in fantasy. Y'all know I wasn't a big Gabriel Davis fan because we were looking at where Gabriel Davis was valued in fantasy drafts, saying, okay, if y'all are going to be drafting Gabriel Davis next to Jalen Waddle, you can count me out on that one. But with Gabe Davis, you have to sit here and admit, when you're playing in an elite level offense, when you have the talent, even if you're playing alongside an Alpha X wide receiver 1, you are going to be a wide receiver that has a very high ceiling from a week-to-week standpoint. While that floor is going to be very low, 100%, you're going to be an extremely volatile option that could any given week be a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. We've seen this with Devonta Smith going back to, the game against Washington, where he has 169 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and the receiving touchdown to go along with it. It's not like Smith is a different player at all, but please understand that if he's going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, if he's going up against the Houston Texans, this is not someone that you can start because they're not going to be throwing the ball in the second half. You're not going to get that target volume. You need to be playing him in more competitive of contests, like the last game that we got with them going up against the Arizona Cardinals, where that's 20-17, and all of a sudden the man gets 11 targets. That's what we're looking for. Now going over to our next player, you know what? Let's go back to the running back position. Let's pivot over to DeAndre Swift here. Because with DeAndre Swift, y'all know we may or may not have had him in a couple buy low videos over the past month. And with DeAndre Swift, he played 10 snaps this week. We got lucky with Swift. I 100% got lucky. Obviously we weren't starting once we had the limited report coming out, but still, we got lucky with the 3 receptions and 40 receiving yards off of the only 10 snaps he played. Going forward, DeAndre Swift falls in a line of do not start him. For the love of God, whatever happens, you cannot start DeAndre Swift until sentiment completely changes. We need one of 3 things happening. We need A, DeAndre Swift practicing in full. DeAndre Swift off the injury report. B, we need this coaching staff coming through and telling us DeAndre Swift's not going to be limited. DeAndre Swift's going to be fully good to go in this game. Or C, we actually see it on the field. Until we have one of those 3 things, DeAndre Swift falls in a bucket of a player that you cannot start in a full PPR format. You still have to hold him. I still think that when he is fully healthy, based on the involvement that he can have as a pass catcher, specifically in a full PPR format, he can be fine. He's a hold for now. Don't sell him. I don't know if I can tell anybody to go through and buy him. We've done that long enough. I've looked stupid long enough. Let me know if y'all think that, we're giving up a little bit too early on the buy low here with Swift. It's just so damn difficult when you would have assumed that the man who went down with the injury September 25th would be at 100% by now. I'm no mathematician. I'm no rocket scientist. I'm no doctor. But I may not assume he would be at 100%, and we are clearly wrong. Now going over to our next spot, let's go over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Leonard Fournette, clear sell-high guy in fantasy over the past few weeks. And with Fournette, this is the 3rd straight week with fewer than 10 carries. 8 carries, 9 carries, 9 carries, 19 rushing yards, 24 rushing yards, and 19 rushing yards. One of the worst rushing offenses in the entire NFL. Tom Brady hasn't looked great. And with Leonard Fournette, earlier in the season, he was saving himself consistently with the involvement as a pass catcher. Once you had the carries falling off after week 2, you start getting 6, 7, 11, 6 targets out of the backfield for Leonard Fournette. However, over the past 3 weeks, you only have a total of 13 targets out of the backfield for Fournette. If we are beginning to look at this trend with the usage of Rachaad White compared to Fournette every single week, Rachaad White, it's not a night and day difference, but he's just taking a little more ground. He's taking a little more usage. He's bridging that gap a little closer. where if this continues, where Leonard Fournette, I haven't wanted to start him as a running back one for a month now. I mean, I think he has been that high-end RB2 in our rankings. He's just going to continue to fall further and further and further. Where all of a sudden we're looking back a month from now, and we're going, okay, well, Leonard Fournette, no longer a mid RB2. The man's a high-end RB3, splitting the backfield 50-50 with Rachaad White, who is the best passing down running back outside of Breece Hall in this past year's NFL draft. Now, sticking in the same offense, I think you can still find value with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being bad. And I know a lot of people are going to be worrying about Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, 368 receiving yards so far this season and 0 touchdowns. Godwin has 0 touchdowns. Honestly, I think he's the best buy low in fantasy. I know we've been talking about buying him low for quite some time, but if we go back and look at Chris Godwin historically, there's been nothing to show us that Godwin's not going to be a player that has a respectable touchdown rate. If you look at the target volume and we remove week one, not fair to evaluate Chris Godwin, shouldn't have played, left with the hamstring immediately. Start looking at this week 2. 10 targets, 6 targets, 12, 13, 11, 10. The man's averaging 10 targets a game. The man's averaging over 10 targets a game if we remove week 1 here. The passing volume's consistent in Tampa. The touchdowns have not been there. Historically, Chris Godwin has had a respectable touchdown rate. We know touchdowns are extremely volatile on a season-to-season standpoint. You can easily get a player going through an unlucky 6-game stretch where he's not scoring and it will flip in a switch like that. Go look at Joe Mixon. I'm actually panicking on Leonard Fournette, but I'm going to use the panic of Chris Godwin and go buy him low where we can. Now, going over to our next guy, let's look at Aaron Rodgers. With Rodgers, if you're playing in Superflex, panic. If you're playing in one quarterback, just drop him off your roster. If we are looking at the Green Bay Packers instead, I mean, obviously, this Packers offense is nothing like they've been in the past. This Packers team is nothing like they've been. If we go through 7, 27, 14, 27, 22, 10, 21, 17, 9 points scored. The Packers are averaging fewer than 20 points per game. I mean, significantly fewer. I will say, Allen Lazard, A.J. Dillon are just going to be fine. If you have Aaron Jones going down with the injury, A.J. Dillon projects to be a top 5 running back in fantasy. Allen Lazard looks like he's going to be a must-start guy with Christian Watson going down with yet another concussion. Romeo Doubs getting carted off, then being placed in the boot. Aaron Jones going down, getting placed in the boot as well. So if we have 3 of these passing down options being removed for Aaron Rodgers in this offense, it was already, I mean, it's very painful to say, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. It's going to get really ugly. Please, for the love of God, if you think you can start Aaron Rodgers, you're better off streaming. The only guys we're starting here is a starting running back, A.J. Dillon if Aaron Jones is down, and also, I guess, Allen Lazard, because every other passing down option in this offense is also injured. But I think that's all I got for you. Of course, thank you so much for supporting this video. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in the comment section. And in that comment section, you can find the link to Underdog Fantasy, where you can check out all these cool player props. And when you sign up for Underdog and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And also, only with promo code FLOCK, if you signed up this weekend, signed up this morning, will you get access to this free bet of Alvin Kamara there. Go ahead, take advantage of it. Deposit $10, promo code FLOCK. Immediately have $20 in your account. Go bet the over on Alvin Kamara. Work my butt off to get y'all that. That's only for people who use promo code FLOCK. Find the link in the comment section in the description. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day, and hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.